Welcome to the Andy and Rem Show. It's the Andy and Remington's Not Here show on a Tuesday night. It's the Andy and Remington's Not Here show for your home delight. That's right, folks. Remington is not with us tonight. However, we found, I think, just about an adequate replacement who has stepped in at the last minute to discuss all the latest Age of Sigmar goings on. Among other things, we have, as you'll see right here, the uncle of wargaming, Mr. Uncle Atom of Tabletop Minions. Hello there.
Good afternoon for me and good evening for you. How's everybody else doing? I hope well out there.
Well, I can tell you how I'm doing for a start. Wouldn't you know it that all the technical issues and non-technical issues all decide to pile up about 5 minutes before a show is supposed to go live? Not only did I get a message from Remington telling me that he can't make this show, but then my hard drive immediately died as soon as I received that message. Like, it's been slowly dying, I think, for a while, and I've been taking steps to back up all the stuff on it, and it's luckily not the hard drive that any of my programs required to live stream were installed on, but it did choose to die just before this, and there were a couple of things on there that I wouldn't like to lose, and then I had to kind of rejig the entire PC in the last couple of hours and get everything up and running again. So, after technical issues, after personnel issues, here we are. It's the Andy and Atom show tonight.
Was it some sort of like a despair that the hard drive finally? I mean, like, got the message about Rem not being able to make the show, and then it just said, "Well, that's it, I'm out." I mean, is it possibly that?
That may have played some small part. And I'm thinking the microphone issues were possibly due to it anticipating that I was going to sing, and it remembered last time. I do push it to the limit with some of those that pitch that I can reach that Remington struggles to aspire to on his best day. So let's see who's in the audience tonight, shall we? Because it's obviously a packed house. People have been waiting. This was supposed to be an early show tonight, and it's now about the time we usually do this. So we have Bazooka J. Rambo, Darkbeard 89. That's an interesting name. Not sure I've seen that one before. Demon _ Lizard _ from _ out _ space. DLB Dibbington, Dice Miniature Paint Guy, Graham Rigg, Jones Yarny, Kevin R, who I presume is a pirate, Lady Phoenix, Mark Harvey, Mickey Genver, Sean Blake, Skeleton Flower, and Newbie, obviously. Oh, there's ATL Rabbits has just popped up as well. So, Mr. Atom, while we have you here, what have you been up to lately?
Well, let's see. I've been working a lot, and I've been doing my show every Friday and my live show every other Sunday, aka the Every Other Sunday show. But yeah, otherwise I've been preparing now for Gen Con. It's coming up. I'm leaving not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow. And that's going to be, it's about a 6.5, almost 7-hour trip. And then, I don't know, I'm going to be meeting with a bunch of different businesses, hopefully, game companies. Let's see, today I'm going to be meeting with Games Workshop. I got that nailed down, time and date. And also Osprey, the people who make Frostgrave. So those are just some emails I've been fielding today. So, but yeah, I'm really looking forward to Gen Con. I mean, the really, really, really big crowd this year, because it's the 50th. I don't know that I'm exactly looking forward to that, but otherwise, yeah, I'm really looking forward to going and seeing people I don't get to see that frequently and seeing a lot of new stuff and all that stuff.
So what you're saying is you're very much in demand, and that when you attend any kind of con nowadays, you're going to be pretty much swamped with professionals and, of course, the YouTube universe out there.
I mean, I have to generally still, initiate these emails. I want to meet with these people and hopefully do that stuff. But at least now it's more of a, I'll get a response, an email and say, okay, well, we can talk at, at this time and that kind of stuff. Whereas before I used to kind of just stand around in front of their booth until they talk to me.
Well, when you reach the A-list echelons of YouTube, as we both have,
indeed,
it's a ladder that took us a decent amount of time to climb it. But when you reach the top and you look down, it's tempting to just pull the ladder up. but that's not what we do.
It's a heavy ladder.
We reach down and help others climb up.
Indeed.
I like to think anyway, granting, for example, interviews with smaller channels and such.
Sure, absolutely.
And the Andy and Rem show, of course, being a great help to you, helping to put the word out for your small fledgling channel.
No, and I appreciate it. I really do.
I just let the camera just linger on your face for a second there, just so people could gauge whether that was a genuine response or not.
Absolutely.
Right, I suppose we should look at some Age of Sigmar stuff, shouldn't we? Because this is an Age of Sigmar themed show, after all. So, where better place to start than the Warhammer community page? And the main point of interest that I could find over the last couple of weeks, open play in the General's Handbook. Now, some would say that open play is really, it should just be one sentence, do whatever the hell you want. That's not what GW have taken it to mean, though, because it seems they've added quite a lot and put some effort into their open play. Because the way I would play, I would describe it as a hybrid of all the different ways to play. Matched play in the sense that I like to kind of balance the forces with points just so it's roughly even. Add open play because pretty much anything goes, and narrative play because I always like to throw a little story in there. There's always some kind of theme going on. But Games Workshop are obviously trying to separate these three styles of play in a way that I'm not sure it'll be ideal for someone like me who already kind of hybridizes them anyway. But which style of play have you found yourself most drawn to?
I keep talking about doing some narrative play, but for now, most of the games when I do play Age of Sigmar, they generally kind of, depending on who I'm playing with, hover between matched and open. So there are certain friends of mine that I play against that we always end up just playing open because we just bring whatever we feel like / currently actually have painted. I've got a couple of friends who just refuse to run anything that's not painted. So, you know, it's sometimes difficult to hit specific milestones in the points and say, well, we're going to play a 470 point list. I mean, it's just that kind of thing. But I've got other friends who are very rigid in what they want to do. So it's, we're playing 1,000 points or we're playing 1,500 points. I play it, frankly, these days for my Chaos, I play a lot of 1,000 points games, and I'm getting quite close on getting my Death Army up to 1,000 points painted as well. So then I'll be able to alternate back and forth. But those are the two. I keep meaning to do narrative, but we just never, I think it's a bigger investment in time and just general kind of, you know, thought, mind share stuff and whatnot. So it takes a little bit more work.
Right, there is one comment I have to touch on here in the chat before diving into this properly. Because Mickey Jenver, talking about the A-list ladder, when you reach the top and look down, you see Rem below being chased by groupies. And for me, that conjures up images of kind of zombie survival situations where there's always that fire escape ladder just dangling, and the hero has to leap onto it and pull themselves up while all the zombies are reaching up. And that is what Rem goes through on a weekly basis.
Or one of those rope ladders from the helicopter.
Yes, that too. Although I'm not sure if the private helicopter has ever been dispatched for Rem. I am usually using it, and yeah, I suppose we could.
Sometimes it needs to be cleaned.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you know, sometimes it's getting cleaned, so you can't go pick up Rem from being attacked by zombies, so, or, you know, groupies or whatever. So
he's normally just with the limo,
right?
I find being at ground level is a little too close to the riffraff for my liking. So anyway, about this open play, let's have a look at this. So they've got some crazy new concepts, some of them not that new, some of them recycled from old ideas. But one of the things they've brought in, which I found interesting to say the least, is this fog of war idea, which means that when you're teaming up with somebody, you can't actually pass on any instructions to your ally verbally. It all has to be in written notes, apparently. Unless your generals are next to each other on the battlefield.
Interesting.
Now, if you're already around a table playing a game, let's say as a 4 in teams of 2, would you be really verbalizing your strategies loudly anyway? Wouldn't you just be like, texting each other or something nowadays, whatever the kids are doing?
Yeah, I would think so.
That seems like an odd concept there.
It seems as if, to some degree, they're just basically trying to say, well, here's a bunch of ideas that could be fun games, maybe. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's open, so there shouldn't be any rules, hence the openness. But they're trying to kind of give you some examples and say, well, this might be a fun thing to do, or that kind of thing.
There are some examples of fun things to do that have already been around in some form or other, not officially necessarily, but things like divine intervention. Their examples here that they give you are for a death army, suddenly some models will come back to life, or an order army, suddenly a big shield will defend them. So if one side is losing and you want it to be fun right to the end, because it's not a competitive match game, then these are the kinds of thing everyone would come up with. Like, well, how about if I kill that guy now, I win. That's my new objective, just to balance it at the end. I can dig that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a tendency to do that myself in not just Age of Sigmar, but any kind of game. If I'm starting to lose, I just decide to make myself a new goal and say, well, my new goal now is just to destroy that one, that lieutenant, or to destroy, or to get to the other side of the board or something. I make up, some sort of, sometimes it's just a go for broke. I'm going to destroy their warlord, general, whatever, depending on the game system. So I feel like some of this is just basically, I'm not saying it's fluff, but it's basically them saying, look, here's a bunch of ideas. Maybe they think that not enough people are playing open play. I don't know.
I would say if you're going into a game with the idea that one side is going to be completely obliterated and wiped out, then maybe you're doing it wrong in the first place. So even planning for this maybe is a bit much. These are always, for me, it's always things that come up on the fly. Like, oh, I didn't realize these forces were so unbalanced. How about that giant that you decided to send through a realm gate using one of Rem's tactical master strokes as an example, and then rolled a 1. How about he just pops out the other realm gate now in the next turn, just to balance it up again? So I'm not sure whether planning for that in advance and having all these tables is necessarily the right way to go about it. But we'll see. Maybe some people need that extra nudge. Maybe some people don't have the kind of fountain of creativity within them.
Yeah, I get that feeling. I mean, especially if you're maybe newer into the game or newer into wargaming in general, I could see that being the case with them wanting to give you some examples and some ideas about, how to, because honestly, if you're playing it more, you're more likely to buy models. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line.
That's what everything eventually boils down to if you go down far enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Triumph and Treachery, which people will know as the 3 or more player mode from the good old days. And they've got a few things you can do here. There's ways to betray people, and let's have a look at some of these examples they've got here. So Cunning Ruse, when a unit is selected to attack in the combat phase, that unit cannot make its attacks until the end of that combat phase. So you could use points, by the looks of it, to play that on somebody. And the way Triumph and Treachery used to work, they had all kinds of weirdness. Like, you had to direct all your magic against one player because the way the magic system worked. And then there were different abilities you could cash in at certain times that would have effects on the game somehow, and maybe force the opponent to attack a different player instead of you, and things like that. It added another level, but was it still Warhammer with all that stuff piled on top of it? And I was never entirely convinced. I think Age of Sigmar lends itself more to that kind of weirdness, though, than the last few editions of Fantasy did, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, from what I know from Fantasy, that does make more sense. But I definitely, it seems as if from just what I know and from playing Age of Sigmar, it's a different game in that you've got a lot of bigger units and you've got a lot more, I don't know, the Triumph and Treachery stuff to some degree. It seems as if, I mean, just the fact that there's points there that you can spend seems like you're getting a little bit away from open play. But if it's giving you examples, I think it's a good thing.
And next down here, open war cards. So this is kind of what you could already do just with the rule book. If you look at some of this, they give you different deployments, different twists, and different objectives and such. And then you can basically draw random ones. So really, from every rulebook I've ever seen, you could already kind of do this. It was just slightly more difficult to randomize it when you didn't actually have cards. And they boast that there are, where's the number here, 62,208 possible combinations, which is quite a significant amount. but whether they would all be drastically different at all remains to be seen. And personally, I haven't really played a game of Age of Sigmar where I didn't have a specific story in mind. So I'm not sure I would be the best person to make use of this. Maybe that'd be a challenge for someone like me to draw these cards and then cook up a story based on all of them that makes sense. That would be an interesting twist on it, I think.
Kind of the opposite of a choose your own adventure. You know, the adventure would be chosen for you, and then you'd have to try to figure out how to flesh it out. I can see that. It's
like Russian choose your own adventure.
Right, yeah.
Adventure choose you. Look, they've even given us a handy-dandy little diagram here. Map, objective, twist. I know those aren't dance moves. These are ways to pick scenarios for Age of Sigmar.
I think the last one is a dance move.
It may very well be. Yeah. I'm assuming map and objective aren't dance moves, but I'm not up on the latest moves. If anyone out there is, I think Mickey Genver does a bit of dancing. Maybe you could let us know if map and objective have ever popped up in any particular dance culture. And I think that's it for that. So, thoughts on GW giving a bit more attention to the old open play? Oh, what is this? We have a Remington.
Assuming map and objective aren't dance moves, but I'm not up on the latest.
And he's listening to the show at the same time.
Mickey Genver does a bit of dancing.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you could let us know if map and objective have popped up in any particular dance culture. And
Hello?
Oh, there we go. You fixed it.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Hello, everyone.
Well, Mr. Rem, you'll be thrilled to hear that you just missed the part where we're actually discussing Age of Sigmar.
That was really informative. It was kind of like, Adam really knows his stuff, man. That was great.
He worried that maybe we're showing people what the show could be, maybe if it was minus Remington.
What the show should be like, maybe, yeah. So, I'm sort of surplus to requirements, but, you know, nothing wrong with that, being a fan. Can you sing, Adam?
Not well, I don't think.
Then
I was in a band, but I don't think I did well.
You're more than qualified, my friend.
He's no Andy, let's put it that way.
That's a good, very, very good point. I don't think I can hit that register, certainly.
All right, how you guys doing? You all right?
Yeah, no, I'm doing well. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well.
I had a bit of a family tragedy, so I've had to be running around dealing with something there. But yeah, all good apart from that. Cool.
Cool.
And as usual, Mr. Rem, I assume you're fully up on all the latest Age of Sigmar goings on in the community.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm on the pulse, baby.
Finger on the pulse,
yeah.
Ear to the ground.
I think it might be a dead person's pulse, but
finger on the pulse, ear to the ground, nose. I don't think nose to the grindstone is really appropriate.
It's very big, so it's not been anywhere near a grindstone. But my hands have been very near paint and brushes. I've been painting like a demon recently. I've been painting lots of Empire stuff.
So Empire. Now, if you were American and you said, I've been painting like a demon.
Not like a golden demon, but more like maybe I don't know, maybe a bronze demon at best.
A golden weasel standard, perhaps. Speaking of which,
ooh.
Maybe I shouldn't show you this trophy here. I'm just going to hold it just below the camera so no one can actually see it, but I'm actually holding in my hand the golden weasel trophy, which is just missing Remington's signature underneath it, and then we can send that.
All right. Let's have a look.
I'm not showing you, because then the audience will see its magnificence. I'll tell you, the camera can't actually capture it because it's too big, is the problem.
Adam's just shaking his head there, like he knows.
You need a wider screen to be able to catch all the magnificence.
If you saw last year's trophy, then you'll know it's difficult to capture the true radiance of that golden weasel statue in such a small, confined corner of the room as this. So I wouldn't do it justice. Okay, so now that you're here, Mr. Rem, I think we were actually going to do a little interesting segment, which I suppose we could still do anyway, before you tell us what it really is, because you showed off something on the Facebook group, and no, it was PG rated. Here it is.
I did. What do you think that is, Adam?
Yes, this is the question. This was your $1 million idea, but you didn't tell anyone what it is. So I think we're going to wildly speculate on what it might be. So let's have our guessed go first. Mr. Remington have schemed up with
I
this.
ought to tell you that it's not necessarily hobby related, but it could be.
I was thinking that at first it was a new, I was thinking it was a new version of very tall elves. Dwarves, very tall dwarves, maybe. You know, like they've got the fire slayers who are mostly naked. They got the mostly metal guys who are the sky dwarves, and now these are the, maybe, I don't know, rave dwarves. I'm not sure which. Electronic dwarves, Tron dwarves. That's the best I got. I don't know.
It could be like a future race, couldn't it? Just people that exist within, like, their programs through different systems.
Or maybe they exist within light itself. That's probably Seraphon, actually.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's good, but you're wrong, unfortunately. What about you, Andy?
Well, I'm going to look at the comments first to see what they've come up with. A lot of people saying Tron, how predictable. Skeleton Flower says, looks like every Dark Eldar color scheme ever.
Nice.
Okay, Bazooka J. Rambo, this is something that sounds like a Remington $1 million idea. Nude Dark Tron Laser Quest.
You're all way off. You're all way off. What if I was to give you a clue?
Wait, don't give me a clue, because I've got an idea here.
Okay.
Wargaming fluorescent neon body paint. So that when you're in that tournament hall, they can just turn off the lights, and then suddenly it illuminates, and you can have like a secret objective written on your chest.
Nice.
And you see what your opponent was gunning for the whole time.
Nice. I mean, you could use that for cosplay as well, couldn't you?
You certainly could. But I assume that's not it.
That's not it, no. That's not it. Anyone got any ideas on the chat?
Bazooka Rambo Dark Room Gaming. I have had ideas for games that have to be played in the dark, and I'm sure you have, but not along the same lines.
No, I mean, this goes way beyond the hobby, this idea. You know? This could...
You're going to expand some horizons here.
What if I said it could change the hygiene industry?
That is something that would be welcome in wargaming then, definitely.
Well, first, so I'll tell you what it is then. I've not got a name for it, so maybe you could help me out with that. But it's a brand new product. Now, I'm sure you've all been to the dentist one time, where the dentist shows you all the kind of parts of your teeth that you're missing when you're brushing. And they do that with that sort of, you get that blue pill and you crush it up in your mouth, right? And then you swirl it around and then you show your teeth, and all the dark bits are the bits you're missing when you're brushing. Anyone familiar with that? No?
Yes.
Of course. Well, this product is it's called Remington's Ultra Clean Wargamer. And what that is, it's a product you put, but it's, instead of just putting it on your teeth, you put it up over your whole body, and it shows the areas that need to be cleaned.
Interesting. How much of this stuff would you actually need to use to cover the entire body, though?
It's all over gel.
You're thinking like industrial size family tub?
Yeah. Obviously, that would be, you know, a bit more expensive than the travel tube version. But,
I think the issue may have is that the people who aren't necessarily, you know, washing themselves are not necessarily going to be concerned about the parts they've missed, and so they're not going to put the gel on themselves. Now, if this was a spray that you could spray on somebody at a convention and then find out what parts they missed, then maybe you've got something. But the people who aren't washing themselves don't concern themselves with it, most likely. So, you know, they're maybe not going to buy it.
Would you want to be that guy at the convention running around the tournament hall with the spray, just quickly stealth spraying everyone and running away and seeing which parts of them illuminate?
It's like walking through a metal detector. It's like a thing you have to walk through when you get into the convention, and then, you know, like that.
Adam, it's almost like you're plugged into my mind here.
Well, you know.
I'd like to welcome you to the Remington think tank officially. You know, you're part of the family now.
Because if you force people to do it, it's way better than just saying, well, maybe you should do it.
Absolutely. So it's like when you go to the airport and you go through that thing to check if you're carrying anything you shouldn't be.
Yep.
Like you go through this, and these like ultraviolet lasers show up the areas which you need to focus on. So even if you're not that hygiene minded, it's going to soon make you think twice.
Well, Mr. Remington, I wouldn't get too excited because I've just heard word that at Warhammer World they're currently installing the GW's patented hygiene detector.
Is that since we've been on air, I suppose?
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Construction is already underway and they've got all the paperwork in. Too bad. You really need to actually get these things down on paper before you reveal them on the show, just so GW could stop stealing all your wonderful concepts. Never mind. Right, so there's a couple of other things. Someone in the chat has told us that we should talk about this highly controversial topic of GW being sued for $62 million that all the clickbait websites have jumped on. Does anyone have any thoughts on that at all?
Well, how much? 162 million?
I believe it was $62 million for their uncompetitive practices or something.
Wow. Is it serious?
It depends what you mean by serious.
That's a very good point, yes.
Is it Andy and Rem show serious?
I think it's serious in that it's something that is actually being filed, as far as I'm aware, but not necessarily serious in that anyone will take it seriously kind of way. So if anyone in the chat has something to add on that.
I just skimmed the article, and it's, from what I could tell, being posted by, it's being brought up by a lawyer who I think is somehow adjacent to tabletop gaming in some fashion. And I don't know. Like I said, I skimmed it. I had someone ask me about it actually on, I want to say Facebook or Twitter yesterday or today. And I said, I guess I don't really know much about it. So I looked it up, and yeah, it's just this suit that's come up, and I don't know that anything will really come of it. It's hard to say. I mean, I think that probably Games Workshop's probably got more lawyers than just this one guy, so maybe that'll help. I don't know. But just on the face of it, for me, it doesn't really pass the smell test, but.
Does it pass the REM test?
I mean, maybe. I've supposedly had lawyers working for me when they said they were working for me, trying to, pursue GW and all the ideas they've been ripping off me for the last 18 months. Maybe kind of made some headway there. I mean, I'm talking to Mickey Genver. She's in the chat. She's been telling everyone she's my lawyer. Maybe she's actually filed something. And there's.
Is she actually a lawyer?
I don't think so.
No.
You don't think so, but you don't know that for a fact.
Enthusiasm goes a long way against expertise and laziness.
Is that your motto for this show as well? Although I think you would have to work on the enthusiasm a bit if you want to start using that. That part where you fell asleep, maybe. Your enthusiasm levels hit a bit of a snag that week, I would say.
I don't remember that. Adam, do you remember that?
I've seen, highlight reel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andy just puts these things together. They're like, it's like a
real hatchet job I've done on you. Okay.
No, but it is true, and they've mentioned in the comments that Rob from Warhammer TV is leaving. So it's a shame. He's been amazing, hasn't he? But, some people can't handle being an A-lister.
Maybe the rumor that I put around on, I think it was the 1st of April, oddly enough, that Mr. Remington Steele had been headhunted by GW. Maybe that rumor finally circulated to him, and he thought he'd get out while it was still safe.
While it was still safe. I wonder how many subscribers they'd lose if I took his place.
People did speculate on how much of the GW community interaction. Because if you look at the live shows, obviously a lot of that's him. A lot of the kind of funnier videos that they've put out on Facebook and on YouTube, a lot of them have been centered around him, and people wondering how central he is to all that, and whether it's something more behind the scenes that sent them in that direction, or whether it's just the people they've got in front of the camera that's helping to steer the ship. So we'll find out if he's gone, won't we?
I'm sure, as Adam will well know, that when it comes to editing and production work, it's the person behind the camera that's actually doing most of the hard work. And if you've just got a fun personality in front of it, you know what I mean, then that's awesome. But someone that is actually doing most of the work is probably not Rob.
I think that a lot of the community kind of steering the ship for Games Workshop is a guy named Eddie, who is frequently, at least at Adepticon, Eddie was always sitting next to Rob during the Twitch streams, the live shows. He's got glasses and dark, brown hair, and he's been kind of their community manager for quite some time. Back when, and this is going back quite some time ago, back when they first had, like, they had gotten off of Facebook, Games Workshop had, and had basically no Facebook presence, and all they had left was the Games Workshop digital editions page on Facebook, and that was a codex came out for Inquisition that was digital only, and they started kind of putting out these digital only codexes, and people would go onto the Facebook page to ask questions about it. And this guy named Eddie kept answering them, and he would answer underneath Games Workshop's, thing. It would say, but then he would always sign Eddie, and it was amazing at the time. I did a video about it years ago about how they were actually answering questions online. This is back when before they had a community page again, and before they had all that other stuff, and they've actually become much more responsive. I think a lot of that community stuff is coming from Eddie. So the fact that Rob is leaving, is a bummer, because they'll probably need to kind of find a new, more of a face person, but I think Eddie is still really kind of steering the ship and the strategy and all that kind of stuff. I think he's a marketer and a community person. And from what I'm actually, my plan is to be meeting with Eddie actually at Gen Con this year. So
that's interesting, Adam. I mean, because you know firsthand that if you're looking, they're looking for the new face of GW. You could be just staring at him right now.
You're a lot closer to them, to that neck of the woods, than I am. So yeah, certainly.
I'm 25 minutes away from Warhammer World. I've got one foot in the door. They know me there. Every time I go there, they go kind of crazy. Unless I'm with Andy, then there's not so many people.
And they just go crazy for me instead.
Well, you've certainly got a face for radio, Andy. I'll tell you that much.
That sounds a little bit harsh to me.
No, you're the brains behind this operation. That's for sure. So you could be my Eddie,
like the puppet master.
Oh, that's going a bit far now. Yeah, but there you go. That's great, Adam. Yeah, you've been like on the cusp, on the pulse of things there, haven't you? Tell us about Adepticon, man.
Adepticon was great. It was, it was neat to see. Speaking of Games Workshop and Age of Sigmar, it was really interesting to see the setup that they had at Adepticon for the streaming that they do for the Twitch stuff. They have this big kind of crazy metal frame that they put over, and they've got lights on it and several cameras pointing down. The guys, when they're talking and they're talking to the camera and they're doing all the kind of not the behind the scenes, but the commentating, they have a giant touchscreen between the two of them, Rob and Eddie, and so they can kind of draw on it, and say, well, then these guys are going to go over here, and these guys are going to go over here, and all that kind of stuff. And so, just kind of seeing that stuff from behind the scenes for from time to time when I would stop into that room, it was cool. But otherwise, yeah, Adepticon was great. It's the biggest one again so far that they've done. They keep growing, and so I'm already looking forward to next year. I've already got my hotel rooms for next year because they just announced, that about maybe 2-3 weeks ago that the hotel rooms have opened up. And then I'm going to Gen Con. I'm leaving a week from tomorrow, so that'll be fun too.
Do they have any displays that show you new things that are going to come out?
They didn't have much of that this year in the booth. Well, no, they didn't in the booth. I went to a distributors conference in Wisconsin, where I live, back in late May, and they were showing off painted versions of the models from the Dark Imperium box for 40K, and that was the first place that they had publicly showed them off. And so I was lucky to be there. I happened to live nearby, so I went to the conference. But they weren't doing any of that, at least at Adepticon. Now, whether they will or not at Gen Con, I don't know. But it'll be kind of interesting to see what kind of stuff they've got in the booth.
What's your prediction for new AOS stuff?
Well, I don't know. I think that I'm hoping they're going to start showing, and it's not exactly AOS, but it's AOS adjacent. It would be interesting to see what kind of stuff they show off for Shadespire. They talked a bunch about Shadespire at Adepticon. when I went to that distributor conference in late May, I got to play Shadespire one night for a little bit, and that was kind of interesting. And the models they're not the normal sculpts; they're new sculpts. I didn't get to see any of the Death Army sculpts, but I've seen the pictures that you've all seen online.
That looked pretty cool. They're like little death squads, aren't they? Basically. Yeah,
they're very small little squads, and they're in different colored plastic. You know, the Stormcast are blue, and the Bloodbound are red, and then the Death, so far from what I've seen, are like an ivory color, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm. I remember the good old classic skeletons that were in kind of that bone color on the sprue. Good old days. Right, we've got 2 more things to look at here. First of all, well, what should we do first? Shall we do the nerd confessions, or shall we go through the community's painted miniatures? Let's start with the nerd confessions, shall we?
Oh no, let me just get my instrument.
Yep. Everything has to cease while Mr. Remington grabs his instrument, as always. So I'm going to get them all ready on the old Facebook page here, so I can read through them, and then we can assess how much of a nerd everyone is in the community. The people that have confessed to things, anyway. And I'll tell you why this came about as a discussion topic this week, as soon as Mr. Remington's finished with his song.
I'm going electric now in celebration for Adam's appearance on our show. What's your nerd confession, baby? I'd really like to know. What's your nerd confession, baby? Jody, Andy, and Remington show. What's your nerd confession, baby? What's your nerd confession?
Okay. Right. Some nerd confessions. So this came about originally because I posted in my other Facebook group, the non-Age of Sigmar related group, that when I was at school, I actually performed a Warhammer 40,000 themed rap. That's right.
When you were at school, what, secondary school?
Yes. So I was probably about 13 at the time.
How did that go down? Did they like it?
There was about 5 people in my class that were into Warhammer and Warhammer related things, so it wasn't completely strange. And there were people that were less cool than me, will you believe? And my rap was actually better than most of the people's.
Do you remember
particular day? I remember some of the lyrics.
Were your beats funky?
They will have been very funky, yes.
Did you do it? Did you sing it in your Banshee voice?
No, I don't think rapping works in that voice. It was. I'll tell you, it was about the Imperial Guard Captain Alraham, the Talon Desert Raiders captain with a plasma pistol. I can tell you that much.
Does he die?
No.
Okay.
Anyway,
cool.
So with that, I'm just going to tease everyone with that. I'm not actually going to tell them any of the lyrics. Let's go to some of the nerd confessions that came in on the Facebook group. Yeah. So, here's one. This sounds like a nerd confession, all right. This is from Brian. I got caught by my fiancée secretly taking a day off work while she was away. She thought I was cheating, but I actually just wanted to sneak out for a few midday games of AOS.
Wow. That's brilliant, guys. Did you get away with it?
He didn't actually comment whether he got away with it. Someone asked if he cheated during the game. Now, does that mean did he have some kind of affair during this Age of Sigmar session, or was he just fixing the dice rolls or something? They didn't really clarify what they meant there. Let's see. Okay, here's one. This is from Mickey. There are so many Mickeys in the community, you'll never be able to narrow down which one this is. I recently went to a hippie festival and acquired a bunch of sacred healing crystals to smash up for basing material.
Wow. That's awesome.
I wonder what the hippies would make of that. What do you think?
What kind of materials, I wonder? Like quartz and such?
Possibly. What do hippies use to heal?
Amber.
I don't know. Would it help your dice rolls potentially? Maybe they're onto something. Is my point.
Does a die have a chi within it that, when off-centered, can cause the die to land in a particular way more often than not? How about that? Remington's digesting it.
Did the die what? Something about die.
Yes. Okay, next one. This is from Jim. I scratch-built 10 6x4-foot tables worth of scenery, about 100 pieces, in the UK out of blue foam and MDF and some other bits, then shipped it out to New Zealand on the opposite side of the planet. I'm not sure which New Zealand he thought we might think he was talking about there. In sub-assemblies, and then reassembled and painted it all in New Zealand.
Wow.
That's some commitment. How much did that cost? That must have been ridiculous.
Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe they've got a law against taking things in New Zealand from nature. You know, it's like a whole nature reserve, that whole country, isn't it? Ever since Lord of the Rings come out and The Hobbit, you just can't go around picking up pieces of, pieces of wildlife and bark and stuff. It's all precious.
I'm not sure they have an ancient blue foam reserve that you're not allowed to harvest. Anyway. Okay, here's one from John. I once pulled a sickie from work so I could spend the day building Dark Vengeance. That's quite similar to the one we heard a minute ago.
It's great. It's good.
People pretending that there's either something wrong with them or that they're off doing something else when really it's all about the wargaming stuff. Let's see. Oh, here's one from Sam. Another one that's New Zealand related from a different person, though. So there's a big New Zealand connection here. We went all the way to New Zealand where I had planned or snuck into the honeymoon a visit to GW town.
Did the fiance, did your spouse find out? Or was it completely undercover?
It sounds like she must have known about it.
Maybe tricked her into coming with you. She thought you were going like clothes shopping, and she ended up in like a Warhammer world.
I'm not sure you would have time to do that on a honeymoon. Presumably spending all day and night together. So you can't really sneak off to GW on your own, can you? On your honeymoon, surely not.
I wouldn't think so. No.
It's a challenge to anyone out there that wants to try it. I can get it on video.
I can't imagine spending all day and night with anybody. But
you're not married.
Yeah, that explains your relationship.
Right? Who would want to be? You know what I mean? I mean, not just every day and night. Every week, every month, every year. I mean, I'm aging just thinking about that. But it must be nice. I mean, you're smiling at them. You're so.
Yeah. No. I mean, I was trying to think like during my honeymoon if there was any point at which I could have snuck off. I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't have needed to. If I would have said, "Hey, let's go over here," and then we would have gone and done that because my wife is understanding in these things because she's also got her own nerd stuff as well. But to completely, we were pretty much together the whole time during the thing. So during the whole honeymoon situation.
That's cool. So best friend, lover, wife.
Yeah.
Of course, Mr. Rem is married to not only music, but also the road.
That's right. It's constantly moving, evolving.
And I'm not sure this is so much a nerd confession as it is bragging that he got something in White Dwarf. But this is from Alex, and he said, I wrote to White Dwarf asking them about bringing back Necromunda, and they published my letter, which I then posted to this A-list group, bringing you the news scoop of the decade. Yes, GW did say that there will be news concerning Necromunda. It's either next month or maybe this month if it was last month's.
Necromunda or more time?
Necromunda.
Oh, really?
So I'm not sure if anything regarding that has come out already. Probably not, because there would have been an ultimate internet meltdown by now if anything on that had come out. But apparently there will be news soon on that topic. So that's very interesting, because he was suggesting to them that perhaps the games that have come out that are supposed to be Necromunda-esque aren't quite as gang-based as he was hoping, and they're really more just skirmish based on the existing armies rather than their own little gangs in hive worlds. So he wanted to see that come back in full force, and apparently there's news on it coming soon.
Well, don't forget, Andy, there's at least one more confession to come, and that is from our guest.
Has Uncle Atom got the ultimate nerd confession? He must have.
Oh,
All
gosh.
those years of being a wargamer sage, there must be something that's been kept secret.
Well, I've never done any cosplay, so I don't really have anything to talk about there. Usually if I want to take days off to paint and things like that, I don't pretend I'm sick. I just take a vacation day if I can, or whatever. So yeah, I can't think of anything, you know. And I don't get real embarrassed by my hobby. That's, I think, a big portion of the nerd confession part, is that you're saying this because you're embarrassed you did this thing, and I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. I mean, I've done seriously nerdy, stupid things in my younger life, predominantly, but they weren't really related to wargaming, I guess. I did used to take like a tackle box full of paints and models and stuff like that with me to work so that I could paint during lunch. But then half the time I would end up spending most of my time in the break room explaining what I was doing and showing them stuff and whatever. And then, it wasn't so much of a confession as it was more of a tutorial at that point.
I do feel I should leak this Remington confession. He confessed this nerdly confession to me quite a while ago, and I think it's been secret long enough. Mr. Remington once pretended to be ill for an entire week to get off work so he could watch Hawk the Slayer back to back, Monday to Sunday.
And Lady Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to confirm that that is true for the people so they know I didn't just make that one up?
Well, and Battle Beyond the Stars as well. Classic film. But yeah, no, it's not true at all. But what I will say is that my nerd confession is this, that I used to live in a flat where at that time I used to smoke real cigarettes, and my flatmate did as well. And inevitably, one of us or both of us burned the carpet with a cigarette butt. All right. And we were going to move out soon, and the landlord was going to come and check the flat was in, it was nice before we moved out, right? So, you can clean everything, you can move your stuff out, but something like a cigarette burn in the middle of the carpet is not easy to cover up. So out came my Citadel paint, and I attempted to paint over the burn mark in the same color as the carpet.
Were you successful?
No.
See, I thought you were going to say that you were going to put static grass in there and some CA glue and kind of try to, blend it all together.
Yeah, that's why you're here, Adam. You're the master. And I am the,
So you didn't even give it a basic highlight?
I tried, but it wouldn't dry properly. It kept crumbling off all the time. Tried to get the right mixture. I should have maybe if I had an airbrush, that could have worked. I didn't have that. In fact, it ruined my paintbrushes. I remember being more upset about that than the fact that it wasn't really, the carpet wasn't taking to it.
Well, are you sure it wasn't a Forge World carpet and it was leaking some kind of mold release? Have you considered that one?
No.
Take a toothbrush to it.
Toothbrush? What, to get rid of the cigarette?
But the mold release.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How do you know that, Adam?
That's what you're supposed to do to the resin, is wash it and then scrub it a little bit with an old toothbrush and then let it dry out, and then paint will stick to it better.
Right, I've been looking in the chat here to see if we've had any interesting nerd confessions, and I've just seen one from Green Stuff Games, and apparently she went to a festival over the weekend and took a Caradron Overlord's army book to read at night. Now, Mr. Rem, when you've been to any kind of music event, either performing or as an audience member. Have you taken along any kind of wargaming literature to flick through?
I went on a whole tour with UB40 on their tour bus for part of it, because it was, believe it or not, we were kind of trying to save money. There was 3 people in our crew, and there was about 12 people in UB40's crew. Had a big band and the manager and the sound guy, lighting guy, you know. And we had like a 16-seater bus, and we were traveling through the UK. And I put in I could only take one bag with me, apart from my instruments. Took one bag with me, and I must confess, I took Malice Darkblade book, and I took the End Times Glock King book. And one day I was reading it in the back lounge, like very, you know, like a proper rock and roll lounge, and you know, drinks and assortment of fun stuff around. And right in the middle of the table, where like all the band and that could see, I left the Glock King book out, open up. I was quite satisfied.
Did any of them have a look?
Yeah. Well, they laughed at me, and then I started telling them the story, and then they sort of left the room one by one as I was telling the story, and then I had the lounge all to myself, so that had a happy ending.
Just visualizing this scene of you like backstage at a concert or something, all these music legends either tuning up their instruments or doing whatever kind of illicit activities that these people do backstage, and then as the camera pans, there's just you reading your Glockin book in the middle of it.
Or maybe, you know, edge highlighting or something like that.
It was really good, but it was really the whole End Time series was like, hold on a minute, when are the good guys going to win? And they just don't. They just keep losing and dying, and the Glock King, like humanity, or like the human cities, just basically get annihilated from within and from without. And in the Glock King, there are all these like humans dying of plague at the same time as being attacked from the land and from the sea. And you know, you turn each page thinking, and you know, some human angel's going to appear and just dissolve all the rot and Nurgle disease, but it actually doesn't happen.
Sometimes the bad guys win. That's just the way it goes. Preparing you for real life.
Yeah, but yeah, that funny enough, I was more into that than actually performing in front of 2,000-3,000 people at night. There you go.
Almost as many people as watch this show.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right. Speaking of the people that watch this show, we should have a look at their paintwork. And I have a feel that a couple of Remington specials have made their way in here as well. So, first things first. This is from Benjamin, and this is a big, juicy Stormcast Eternals army. That is a very nice colour scheme, actually, isn't it? All that blue in there.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting to me here is, of course, you've got the blue armour and also the blue scales on the dragon, yet it doesn't seem like too much. It's done in such a way so that the armour looks very distinct from the scales, I think.
I think it looks quite very Transformer-y, you know?
I do like the wings as well in the background. I'd like to see a closer image of them. Because a lot of people go for the old airbrush effects on the wings, don't they?
They look awesome. They look kind of futuristic, don't they, in a way?
It's a very vibrant blue. Something that just stands out a bit more with that than the standard Stormcast blue, I think. I'm not sure exactly what it is.
I like the goo coming out the mouth of the dragon.
Ah, yes, you can see that there. Wonderful saliva effects. I wonder if GW are going to do an actual technical saliva paint.
I've tried doing that with real saliva, but it doesn't seem to stay.
I took a class on how to do that at Adepticon a number of years ago, and it's really kind of gross, and that's why I don't want to do it. You use this glue, which we can't get in America, evidently. It's called UHU, UHU. Yeah, and basically it's in a tube, and you squeeze it on your fingers, and then you just do this for a long time until you get like strings of it in between, and then you try to get it off and get it and I was just like, I'm good. I don't need to do that actually on my models. Just,
well, who needs Yoo-hoo glue and Kinder eggs when you've got automatic weapons?
Yes, exactly. It's much easier to paint models with automatic weapons.
It sure is. Okay, this is from Sean, and that is some nice basing there. That is some hardcore lava action going on these guys, which is also replicated on the weapon heads as well, just noticed. So very pale flesh on them, which I think contrasts the bases, which are very dark in the center. Very, very black earth and like ashy earth there. Very, very tasty indeed. On a wonderful tray that reminds me very much of the time I went to Adepticon for the Warhammer tournament, and the only display board, I'm doing the little finger thing there, display board, because it was just this tray. That was the only thing I could actually fit in my luggage that classed as a display board. So that's what my army was displayed on. And when people were coming around to assess the paintwork on the armies, you could just see them look at the tray and think, well, what's this? Just like turn their nose up at it. So it brings back some wonderful memories there for me.
Adam, can you do that effect?
What's that?
The
lava? I've not tried it. I almost always go with some sort of ash. Like no matter almost what army I do, I almost always end up painting a very ash wasteland sort of base, and I don't know why that is. My hope is when I do get to my Stormcast list, I want to have them actually standing on like maybe, I don't want to say grass, but I want there to be some grass maybe and some mud, you know, as opposed to just constantly like just gray, you know, barren wasteland ash, which is what I seem to do most of my models in.
A distinct lack of moisture on planet Atom, it's safe to say.
Yeah, generally.
Adam, what if you were now talking to a psychiatrist and you told them that all you see is ash? What do you think they'd surmise?
I think that they would surmise that I'm relatively lazy in my basing, and I have a thing that I do, and I know how to do it okay, and so I just keep doing it. Like, I hate flock. It gets everywhere, and so, like, when I do my Blood Bowl army, when I finish the basing on them, they will actually be flocked, because it makes sense. You're on the pitch and the whole deal, but I generally stay away from using that stuff on my regular armies.
When you said that whole I hate flock, it gets everywhere, I could just see you. You're going straight into the old Anakin Skywalker speech there.
I've spilt so many flock tubs, you won't believe.
I've still got my green flock tub from 1990 something, and there's still a bit left in there for when I want to add to my dwarf army.
And that's how much of a miser Andy is.
Well, they don't make it anymore. You can't get rid of that stuff now. It's like gold dust. Okay, this is from Matthew, and this is quite a wonderful Arcanaut Admiral.
Yeah.
Now, it's, to me, when I first look at it, I couldn't tell whether it was gold or whether it was like brass or bronze, but there's a lot of different metallic colors going on, which you can see when you look at this kind of groinal covering area here. You can see there are multiple different shades going on here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love the like hammerhead blue. Turquoise, I don't know how he described that color. Aqua blue.
The gemstones very nicely done as well, with some nice white dots as highlights, which is something I've never been able to master yet, but all the painting legends seem to do it. Just seemingly at random, they'll just pluck out little white dots everywhere, and then you think, okay, that looks amazing. I have no idea where I would even start picking out white dots on my miniature to do that, but people can do it. Next, this is another one from Matthew, and this is of course the legendary Slambo. I feel like it has to be said that way.
That is a clean paint job, that is, isn't it? So smooth.
It's a clean paint job on a clean model, it has to be said. It's quite old school, the model, really, isn't it, compared to everything GW have done recently, where they go really detail heavy.
I used to have the original Slambo Chaos Warrior. Look like that.
Is the new one is it fine cast or is it some other kind of resin?
I feel like it was actual resin rather than fine cast. I think I remember it that way.
Looks great. It looks expensive, that does, doesn't it? It's a great paint job.
Very tasty.
Where do you stand with fine cast, Adam? Are you a fan or a?
It's for me. I only find it really useful for Nurgle. So I do have some stuff that's in Finecast from back when Finecast was a big thing, but it's predominantly only Nurgle stuff because some extra pits and bubbles you don't notice because it's Nurgle. You know what I mean? But and like I've said this before, like if you're trying to do like a Finecast, Eldar or Fantasy Elf or things like that, where they're supposed to be smooth and immaculate, it's very difficult to work with. So they seem to be, from what I can tell, they seem to be basically really phasing it out, which is why I was asking about Slambo, because I've seen the box for Slambo at the store, but it's not that little clamshell that you can see in. It's like a cardboard box. And I know they say it's resin on there, but they don't call it Finecast specifically. So I'm kind of interested, but I don't know.
My main memory of Finecast is that I think the first Finecast model I had would have been for my Dark Angel Space Marines, Belial, the Master of the Deathwing. And he's got a really long sword that points up in the air, and it's ever so slightly bent to one side. And I remember there's a big game of 40k on my gaming table, and it was going to last all day, and we were going to head to KFC. And I thought, do I want to leave this guy on the table? Looking out the window, is the sun going to come out? Because if the sun is going to shine on this table while I'm out the house for maybe an hour, I'm going to come back, and he's going to be like touching his nose to the ground almost. You really can't leave those things in the sun.
No, you can't. It's interesting. I mean, I've got the Finecast Nurgle Demon Prince, and he's got that big sword and all the chains that hang underneath it. And when I got it out of the box, the sword was bent a bit, not too much. And I used a heat gun, and I got it straight again. And I have to admit, I'm happily amazed at how long it has stayed straight. Like, because I've always heard people tell me, oh, well, it'll bend back eventually. And it so far hasn't, which has been really nice. But it wasn't bent very drastically. So I think that probably helps.
Imagine trying to deal with Finecast in some incredibly hot part of the world. Imagine living in like Texas or Australia or something and having to deal with that.
Yeah.
That would be a little too much. Next. Now, this is zoomed in a bit. This is from Natasha, and this is obviously the amazing Seraphon army that we've seen a lot of in the past, and very nice scales, but obviously it's this big thing at the top here that dominates the whole scene. And this ball in the center, in fact, is what catches my eye immediately. That's very, very nice there, isn't it? Lots of skulls, of course. More than your average Khorne model, I would say, and it's not even doing it for the Blood God.
That looks like a heavy totem, man. The weight of it, the poor slam there.
Just top heavy.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that is a Saurus carrying it there, because can you imagine a skink trying to move that thing around? That would not be a fun time at all. The basing's always really good on her models as well, isn't it? So it's not what you'd normally see from basing.
I love that. Does she make that, or does she like?
I don't know. We should find out, actually, shouldn't we? Because you don't normally see full-on plant life on bases like that. Normally, you just see little tufts of grass. You don't see full-on big flowers and such. If you've seen all her other models, then you'll know what I'm talking about as well.
Yeah, that's it.
So maybe she can clarify in the comments after the show on what is used for this basing. Next is from Matthew, and look at this. Caradron Overlords.
Is this the big one?
Nope, this is the medium one.
Uh-huh.
It's the one I've been looking at in a box for a while, putting off painting and working on other things instead, because it's intimidating to look at. But this is quite a tasty one.
That's really cool, man.
I like the kind of patina, to it, the sort of the green kind of brassy, not brassy, more bronzy kind of look.
Yeah. I love the door of that. Looks great, man. I want to go in there.
I would be terrified of painting anything like this where it's supposed to look dirty, because you can see there's like texture underneath there. And there's obviously either some washes or some other kind of effects going on that have made it look intentionally beaten up. And I would be terrified of doing that, because I'd always think if I go too far, then I'd just want to stop and just paint over it and start again and make it look clean. I'm not used to painting dirty things, but eventually I think I'm going to have to go down that road.
I got some like powder rust that you just add a touch of water to, and then you dab it on, and that's how you can get that rust effect.
You didn't get that from the back of a tour bus, did you?
Are you spying on me on tour or something, Andy?
I've got my sources. Okay.
I usually use a sponge actually with a little bit of like a scorched brown, and then you do have to be careful because you can easily go too far, and that's a thing to be kind of concerned about. But that did look great.
Interesting that you say sponge, Adam, and did that with the finger, because there is a product out there, I don't know if you know about it, called the Remington finger sponge. Precisely for those kind of moments. Just putting it out there in case you're wondering.
Where does one find something like that?
Speaking of finger painting, look, you can see some dirty fingers here, covered in paint from legendary painter Mr. Sam Jones.
That's so cool, man. That's like a new pose, isn't it? Never seen that pose before.
That is the boss of the long-range shooty unit of the Stormcast Eternals, with a bird on his arm.
That's a massive weapon, that, isn't it? I mean,
it is.
It doesn't look very practical.
Well, it does have a little stick there underneath that you can stick into the ground and use that to steady it.
That bird's amazing. So pretty, isn't it?
It is. Next. Now, which chump of the painting community has done this? Oh, what do you know? It's Mr. Remington Steele. And talking about unwieldy looking weapons.
Yeah, this was I had a fingerprint on my iPhone lens, so that's why it's a bit misty. You can't see that it's actually 2 or 3 times better than it looks on this picture.
Remington Steele could have been in White Dwarf, but he had a fingerprint on his iPhone lens. That's just the story of your life, isn't it?
Well, Adam, you should be coming to Leicester on your travels and giving me a workshop on this kind of thing. That's what I need, man.
I got to get a what do you call those, passports? That's what I got to do. Passport.
Well, is it true that 40% of Americans don't have a passport?
That sounds true. I don't. The thing is from what I've been told, is that America is so big that there's so many different places to go or whatever, and so that's why we don't travel around outside the country as much. With me, it's just because I'm kind of lazy and I don't like to travel.
I thought it's because it's the greatest country in the world.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. It depends who you talk to.
It may be among the greatest in terms of variety of terrain.
That's true. Well, maybe.
It's up there,
yeah.
Especially compared to European countries.
That's true.
If you're just traveling around England, the only difference really is the accent of the people as they look at you warily.
Well, have you ever tried to paint a model, right, and then you start off painting it like it is on the box? So this is a classic Empire engineer, right? Painted in the red and white of Franz Ferdinand's outdoor style guard, right? Then you think, I don't want to just paint it like all the other GW models. So then you start to do your own paint scheme on top of that, and then you realise actually it looked better before, and then you go back to the original. Or is that just me?
I never generally try to follow the box too closely because I feel like I'm just setting myself up for failure. So I kind of stick to my own, techniques that I'm familiar with, and sometimes I teach myself new ones and then put those into my quiver. But I love the stuff that they do, but I don't usually try to strive for that because I'm going to be sad.
You're a trendsetter, Adam. You're out there ahead. We follow the likes of you.
Not necessarily with paint, I don't think.
Well, I disagree with that, but
Speaking of painting trendsetters, look at this.
Ooh.
This is obviously the work of Mickey. I mean, look at that. That is just insane. If there's some ridiculously disgusting-looking Nurgle monstrosity, Mickey Jenver's behind it.
Nice.
She's definitely cleaned a lens and got a Yoo-hoo glue out.
Yeah, a lot of that.
A lot of that there.
Mm-hmm.
That's next level, isn't it, Adam? I mean, you must have seen some top paint jobs at these, like, you know, wargaming conventions, right? How does this compare?
Adepticon, I mean, with the crystal brush, it's really great to be able to see a lot of the really, really cool stuff, you know, in person, just with a little layer of glass in between you. But that does look really, really nice. I like the look of that a lot.
I think this would be in serious contention for most painting awards out there, definitely.
That's right up there. See, Adam, that's the standard we get. That's the kind of caliber that we have on this show, my friends.
It's good stuff.
And I can tell you exclusively that Mickey Genver, inspired by Remington's $1 Million Ideas, the Genver $1 Million Ideas, this is actually a brand new painting product is in use on this, and it's called Mickey's Liquid Danglage, which you can apply to any surface and it'll just dangle beautifully. There you go.
Danglage, but gold.
You may need to workshop the name a little bit, but otherwise I like it.
Yeah. Liquid silver?
I don't know about that. Next up, this is from Save. Now, I'm pronouncing it that way, but I have no idea if that's the person's actual name or if it's supposed to be like Save, or if Save is just a word that they chose as their Facebook name. But there you go. And look at this, Fire Slayer with a white beard, interestingly enough. You don't see a lot of those about, do you?
No,
Fire Slayers with white beards.
Father Christmas he's had his gown stolen, and he's a bit crazy there. But that's like a very affable paint job, isn't it? It's like he's like your granddad. You want to give him a cuddle.
The white beard does make him look slightly more friendly.
Yeah.
Than the more fiery beards that you normally see on these things. I will admit that.
Look at the beard, Jen. It's amazing.
I'm not sure if he's really saying, I would like a cuddle while he's wielding that gigantic axe like that on his toes, about to strike down with it. With the dragon helmet. I'm not sure it really speaks that to me. But it's definitely more cuddly than your average Fire Slayer, we'll give it that.
You need more cuddles in your life, Andy. That's what you need.
Doesn't everyone? That's what we need to start on this show. We should encourage everyone to just go outside and maybe don't cuddle the first person you see as you walk out your front door. Don't do that.
No, that's illegal.
Cuddle the first person you see that you have cuddled previously and it was accepted. How about that?
I tried to cuddle you, Andy, once, and you sort of really awkwardly sort of sidestepped.
I don't remember that specifically, but it sounds about right. This is from Russ, and this is right up Remington's alley, I think. What do you think about this? It's not quite potpourri, but there's a lot of colour and different textures going on in there, on the basing and, of course, on the tree creatures themselves.
It's like a sweet shop, isn't it? It's like a dryad sweet shop.
You just want to go in there and pick out 99 pence worth.
I normally don't like it when things on the base overlap kind of the edge of the base. That's maybe just a little bit of an OCD thing I have with basing, but I do like those because it looks almost a bit like moss. You know, it's kind of growing over the edge of the black lip of the base. I like that.
I think when there's a little bit of danglage overhanging the edge, it's different from when there's a
danglage again.
There's a lot of danglage on this show. Okay. There's a balance to be had. If you completely cover the edge, I think it looks silly. If you have it so that you're attempting to keep everything on top and there's a little bit that strays, I think that looks silly and ruins the neatness a bit. But when you've intentionally gone overboard in select areas, I think it can look quite nice.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an example of that phenomenon there. Next. Now, the interesting thing here is that Age of Padsmar, this isn't from him, this is from his 10-year-old daughter. And I would say, for a 10-year-old, very impressive. That I'd be very impressed if I'd painted those.
Oh.
Yeah, those are nice.
It's
I
nice
think that I know 30-year-olds who can't do that, so, you know.
I know plenty of people who've been painting for a very long time who are probably only just getting to this kind of level. So I would say that if this particular person is going to be staying in the hobby for a long time, we could have maybe the next Mickey Genver on our hands. You never know. Next, this is from Dan, and this is a red Stormcast Eternal. You don't normally see that because they're often up against the Bloodbound, so surely they wouldn't want to be repping Khorne's colours out there on the battlefield. But there we go, it's red. What do we think?
I like the angle of the picture. It was cool, man. And I like that red, to be honest. It's like a Wild Rider red. Even though Wild Riders aren't supposed to be red, it's kind of like, it's got like a friendly orangey kind of hue to it.
I think it contrasts nicely with the green in the basing. I think that works out kind of well. And I like, yeah. The silver is nice too on the waist covering, the skirt or whatever, the armored skirt. Let's call it that.
I was going to say, I think maybe the hairpiece up there could do with some kind of highlights, but there might actually be one on there. It's just the lighting looks a bit weird, so I'm not sure if there actually is a highlight on it or whether the light's just catching it. So I couldn't really comment accurately on that. But pretty tasty.
Have you ever tried to like cut off those hair bits and put like a real mane of hair that would actually kind of move realistically? You know what I mean?
And then you could aim a fan onto the battlefield and just have the hair just blowing in the breeze majestically.
No $1 million idea right there.
Tiny fans.
The Remington's miniature hair transplants.
I think like a piece of hair only that long would probably just stick up straight, and then your person would look possibly startled.
Well, what I'm thinking of, do you know, obviously with your partner being a musician, you'd know, but like a violin bow, you know, that kind of horse hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very thick. And
it's a lot softer than like people hair sometimes. Yeah, that's true.
Like put it like that and like, like maybe put some hairspray on it. It looked.
You'd probably have to put something on to make it stick kind of the way you want it to go, but yeah.
Nice. See how our two minds meet in the think tank.
Now, this
Andy's not allowed in.
This is from Mike, this dragon with a rider on it. And I will say, if you want to see better pictures of this, look in the Facebook group, because all the pictures show a different piece of it in focus. So just picking out one picture doesn't really do it justice, because you can't really see the face too well in this one, for instance. But there's another picture where you can see the face a bit better. So if you want to get a better look at this, scroll down the Facebook group until you come across it.
I feel like a model that size would be difficult to photograph well, because you're right, you would have a hard time getting all of it in focus.
It's difficult. What I found when I'm taking pictures of miniatures that are quite deep now is to stand quite far away and zoom in rather than standing too close to it. I found that helps. With my camera anyway, that could just be me.
Yeah, the closer you focus to something, the shallower the depth of field gets generally. So that's why, yeah, from a longer distance, you're going to get... yeah, that'll help. That can help.
It's probably difficult on certain cameras, especially people these days taking pictures on their phones. Maybe some of them don't have the best zoom features. Next, now this is from Kim, and look at that. That is very vibrant indeed. It's truly radiant wings there. It almost looks like they glow, doesn't it?
That's stunning pink, isn't it? That is. That's like, it's flawless.
This is very, very tasty. We've seen quite a few very nice Celestant Primes over the months, haven't we? This is definitely up there with them.
It must be like a nice model to paint, you know. That one, you've just got all the kind of the smooth lines, haven't you, to go around.
It probably takes a while to pick out all the little details in the swirly bits, but I can't think of any part of this model being boring, because most people would do the wings with an airbrush. You've only got a regular-sized Stormcast Eternal as the dude on it. It's not like he's extra large. And then all this swirliness, I imagine, would be quite fun to paint there. And each of these little decorations, all of them look slightly different. So I think it would be fun to paint one of these at some point.
Have you ever fought one of those, Andy? Or Adam?
No.
Never
I have not.
Celestant Prime?
I think I've seen them in battle on Warhammer TV once or twice.
Yeah. Do you want one?
To do all right for themselves. I'm torn on whether to get one because it looks so fragile.
Right.
And would I be able to transport it without destroying it?
Yeah, I think that's the hardest part of that, frankly.
Isn't that the rule? It doesn't appear until like later on in the game.
You can kind of keep it back, and it gets stronger the longer you leave it in the heavens.
So it might only appear for like 1 or 2 turns.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next. Now, this is from Andrew, but he points out that it's not his own work. This is his girlfriend's paint work. And first of all, you might think, well, that's a nice paint job. But when I show you the next picture of it is where it really comes to life. But first of all, looking at this, very nice plant life on the base there. Another model with actual plants on the base. So I'd be interested to find out where you get these things from.
Awesome. They look like paper flowers, don't they? A little bit.
Those do, yeah, don't they?
It's hard to find stuff at that scale.
But it's very interesting. But then, when the lights go out,
Ooh.
fluorescent paints.
Wow.
Now, obviously, this isn't the best picture because a lot of cameras struggle in the dark. But you can imagine how that would actually look in person. Very, very interesting. And it goes along with what we were discussing earlier with that $1 million idea that GW stole from you instantly.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Wow, who did them?
Well, oddly enough, it's some up-and-comer Remington Steel.
Wow.
So this is your Squig collection finally complete with the nice new bases.
With the nice new bases. I've got like my Squig/Goblin army is pretty much done, to be honest, but I've just been rebasing them all. So I did the pump wagon, done the Mangler Squig, I've done 10 Squig hoppers, all with these new bases. And yeah, do you know my new thing is? I just keep stuff on the sprues now, paint them on the sprues, and then assemble it later.
Is that what you did with these bases?
I did have the bases like that, yeah.
I can't do that. I don't know what. I think it's just because I know after I get done painting it, then I got to clip it off and then probably repaint that part, you know, where I clipped it.
True, but then you're more careful when you do that. But it's especially with like models that you've got heads and arms and shields, and the shield covers up the body and everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you can do as much as you can on the sprue, it's actually more enjoyable to paint because you can really get all the places you want to get to without sort of stifling your skills. Is it
I generally always attach the model to the base before painting it. I'd always be concerned about how the model would actually stick to the base, especially if it was plastic. I wouldn't want to paint the base first and then lose out on that ability to have it just welded, basically.
Well, I should mention
to the base.
All those squigs are actually metal squigs.
In this instance, I can understand, but how are they stuck down onto the painted bases then? Have you pinned them in there?
No, I had to chop off the slot a bit, and then I would like find imaginative ways to do it, like have his foot on a skull, or put the claw into a crevice of lava. You see that, like the one on the right?
I can see you've got a claw fully within a crevice there, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not child-proof, but it does, as long as it's handled nicely, and it's obviously when you're traveling to games and stuff, you use the tried and trusted Remington packing technique, it should be fine.
You mean where you just throw everything into a box in the back of your car and it's just sliding about everywhere and chipping the paint?
That's the true test of a good glue job.
Have you varnished any of these?
No. Should
Do
I?
you plan to?
Well, will it make them look a bit more sort of slurpy and gooey?
Well, you put the varnish. You can put gloss varnish on first and then matte varnish on after, is what I do on metal miniatures.
I've got
to stop them being shiny.
The clear stuff. Is that what it's called?
They've got the best varnish for this job, I would say, is probably Citadel Ard Coat for the first.
Yeah.
The first coat, and then you could go over that in a matte varnish afterwards to stop it being so shiny.
Hard coat. I have some of that. Yeah. Yeah, I love squigs. I do, but I mean, Yeah, I read somewhere there was like a GW tournament recently, and the Squig army won it.
I hope that's true. I would doubt it had any squig gobbers in it, though, looking at their rules.
No, they didn't have any Squig goggles. They had like the humongous Squig. Can't remember what it's called. The big one, the big Forge World Squig. They had like a couple of Mangler Squigs, some Night Goblins, and then loads of these guys, just basic Squigs.
We've got a product recommendation from Dakota Weaver who says Testor's Dull Coat.
Testor's Dull Coat, okay.
Now,
I don't know.
I think that's an American thing, isn't it?
It is currently, yes, and I think you used to be able to get it overseas, and now, at least I believe in the EU, it's not available anymore. It's probably super dangerous, but I still use it anyway because I think it gives the best mat. It's maybe not necessarily the most protective, but it is probably the most mat, at least in my opinion. But it's a little tiny spray can, and it's not cheap, but I don't know. I like it. But it's I don't know that it's available in the EU right now.
I do all my varnishing by hand nowadays after I had a bad experience with some army painter varnish and ruined a whole batch of zombies because the conditions weren't right. You have to do it when the moon is in the eighth house of Aquarius and on a Tuesday when the wind is blowing northwest.
I have a weather app on my phone that allows you to put in specific conditions, and then you can name that little graph, and it will show you maybe you're into boating or fishing or whatever. And I have a little condition in there now that's called Rattle Can, and it keeps track of humidity and wind and temperature, so I know the best times of any given day or days coming up to know when I can go outside and do a little bit of priming or do a little bit of spray varnish. But yeah, I did have some spray varnish fog on me just recently. Luckily, I was just working on some objective markers, and I was able to go back and hit them again real hard with some gloss varnish, which pretty much got most of the fog out.
Yeah, it is said that is the best cure for it, which I didn't know at the time of ruining the zombies, of course. But it was only the first test batch, so it didn't ruin me too much. And they were mantic zombies, so probably the cheapest zombies around.
True.
Now, here is a picture of Remington's cabinet. So you were telling us a bit about this cabinet last week, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it looks a bit foggy, so maybe I need some of that spray that Adam was talking about. I don't know.
There's another picture of it there.
So that's my goblin stuff so far. You can see how I'm like nearly finished rebasing them all. They look quite a cartoony, with them bases, kind of like manga-ish, but at least they've all got like the same style now. The Black Hawks at the back, I don't know where to put them really. Well, Ard Boys as they're called now, right? They don't really fit into my Savage Orc army, or they don't fit into this one anymore. So I think I'm going to have to lose them and just keep it like Night Goblins and Squigs, and obviously the Doom Diver there on the left. But yeah, I'm probably going to have to get some archers, I think. Some Night Goblin archers, and then I've got a nice little force there.
Right, those are all the images that I'd lined up for us to look at tonight. So, I think it's about time to wrap this one up then. Because some of us have to be awake pre-5 a.m. this weekend, so I'm trying to get my sleep pattern lined up for that.
What are you doing, Andy? You're going to Creative Assembly again?
No, that is for a Kings of War tournament, which is pretty close to where you live, actually, Mr. Remington.
Oh, cool, man. Where?
In Leicester.
Oh, really?
Yep.
What?
At Black Dragon Miniatures. I don't know if you've been there.
Oh, I'll have to come and say hello. Bring you back.
Well, don't say hello for too long because I will be on a chess clock.
in between clicks, you can say hello.
You can say hello to my opponent as much as you like.
I'll come in and I'll embarrass you in front of all your Kings of War friends. I'll come and give you a massive cuddle.
As long as you give them massive cuddles as well.
I don't know them, though.
Well, you will do. That's how you get to know people in a wargaming environment.
That is not how you get to know people, by just cuddling people that you don't know. That's not.
If you've got a kind of superpower where just by touching somebody, let's say on the forehead, you absorb kind of their life force. I'm
pretty sure you're not supposed to do that either. I'm pretty sure.
not in a kind of I'm going to harvest your life force and become stronger kind of way, and now you're just a withered old husk, like a dark crystal kind of thing. We're not talking in that domain. We're talking you understand them and you kind of become one with their spiritual being, and you can befriend them just with a single touch. If you've got that kind of power, then yes. Otherwise, probably shouldn't just run up and hug
Keep
people.
touching people. Yeah, no.
Anyway, on that note, so let's have a little screen share of this wonderful photoshopped image, which is now kind of relevant because Mr. Remington did turn up eventually. And we should, of course, thank Uncle Atom for filling in for the lack of Remington tonight.
Adam, you've been awesome, man.
Well, thanks. I'm glad that the stars sort of aligned, and I was able to kind of step in and help out. Everybody else here at work is at a tech conference, and so for developers, and I'm a designer, so I didn't go. And I was going to kind of leave a little bit early, and I was going to leave just before the show started, actually. But then so yeah, that's why I'm here.
So everyone else is working, and you're doing a live vidcast about ALS.
No, they're at a conference, so they're like at seminars and stuff like that. And I was working all day and was about to leave, and then that's where this happened.
Get a confession out of you there.
Indeed.
Then word got round that Remington was delayed. But then, of course, thanks to Mr. Remington as well for turning up partway into the show and providing some music. Because you can't really have an Andy and Rem show without at least a couple of songs in there, can you? And I did my best at the start, but I didn't think that people would have appreciated a full rendition without the instrument to go along with it.
Adam, you know we've been having complaints, don't you, about the quality of the singing and song on this show, right?
I can't believe that to be true.
Well, it was more of a complaint, singular. One guy who said he couldn't get through the intro song, so doesn't watch the show.
Well, Adam, you'll know this, right? As someone who creates A-list quality content that gets maybe, hundreds of thousands of views. I mean, we're kind of in the same club, right?
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
You could read like 1,000 comments, right, on the comments thing, and they're all right, positive, really nice things. But the one that you remember is that one person that tries to tell you, I didn't like that.
I mean, they do have an effect sometimes. You have to, I think, and because I do read all the comments, but you have to, I don't know. I have to take a look at it from the aspect. I mean, if someone gives a piece of constructive criticism, that's of course generally something that you appreciate. But if someone just says something, just to be mean and just to be nasty, then I don't know. I generally think that there must be something kind of going wrong in their life that they need to make themselves feel better by, complaining to a stranger on the internet, and then I just move on to the next comment.
You have to look beyond the words and see what the intent behind it was.
Yeah,
and then weigh up whether you should take it seriously.
It wasn't malicious. It was just like, you know what? I don't watch the show. I've never watched the show, but I saw the intro, and it kind of put me off.
I mean, it's probably not malicious specifically, but I suppose you could say, But I know what you mean.
I can only surmise they probably saw one of Andy's intros, because there's no way anyone would say that about my singing.
Well,
you're
it was on an episode. It was on an episode that you did the intro for, Mr. Rem. And I think the guy could have really just skipped 45 seconds into the video if he was really that put off by the song.
It's true.
But anyway, thanks to our wonderful audience for joining us as usual. Not sure if there's going to be a show next week yet or not. We'll have to let you know. We'll see if there are any developments in the world of Age of Sigmar, or whether you'll have to wait a couple of weeks for your next fix. And I think it's time for Mr. Remington to play us out.
Now, I thought you should ask, really, Adam, would you like to maybe drop a verse or two?
I can attempt it. I can't be completely sure I'm going to remember everything, but I think I may. Is it the same song as the intro song?
Oh, well, it could be. We're going to write a new one.
Well, if you're going to sing a song, then keep in mind that the Hangouts will only allow one person's audio through the internet at a time. So you'll have to switch in and out.
Yeah, you can get the vibe of it.
If you start off, provide a little verse or something, and then Mr.
Yeah.
Rem will pick up with the guitar where you leave off.
All right, here we go. I'll give you like a little chord pattern, and we can go from there. Okay.
Got it.
When I talk about wargaming, when I talk about love, when I talk about this to Andy, you know he just shrugs. Because Andy don't like having hugs, they make him feel uncomfortable. Adam seems to be comfortable with his life, and he don't worry about that sort of thing.
It's the Andy and Remington. I got nothing. I'm sorry. That was very well done, though. I can't come up with cool lyrics on the fly, but I'll try to do the intro. It's the Andy and Remington Steel Show on a Tuesday night.
Good night.